Well, I need to know.
Have you talked to people?
Yeah, Miss Garcia's.
Hi, Brandon.
Oh, he is? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure out of Sally's.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Board of Education meeting for Weld County School District 6 on the 25th day of January 2021. This meeting will now come to order. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Crane, will you call the roll for us, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Present.
Mrs. Mash?
Present.
Mr. Matthews?
Present.
Mrs. Mueller?
Present.
Ms. Pappas?
Present.
Mrs. Solis?
Present.
Mr. Talley?
Present.
7 members present.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Well, we have a great meeting tonight. So many things on our agenda, so many exciting things on our agenda, and just want to say, first of all, we're so glad to have our students back in classrooms. That is exciting. I know for students, it is super exciting for teachers, and it is incredibly exciting for those of us who are parents. And so glad that our children are back, and so glad to be back in our boardroom. We do have a number of things today, but one I want to draw attention to that won't show up in our meeting is something on our consent agenda, and that is a contract with Roach Construction. And Roach Construction submitted a bid and were chosen based on our competitive bid process to build our new K-8, the Toynton Engineering Academy. And so we don't always get to have a local company build a school, and we are super excited that we are going to have Roach Construction build our new K-8 for us. And that's really all I have today. We'll move right on to our public participation, and I just want to remind everyone that we welcome comments of our community members, and we've dedicated this portion of our agenda to provide an opportunity for the community to present brief comments or pose questions to the board. Written testimony or speaker handouts are submitted to our board secretary, Ms. Crane. The board typically does not engage in discussion or provide immediate response to input, but will ask district staff to respond as appropriate. As a board, we are committed to providing a safe environment where all members of the school community are treated with dignity and respect, and we expect all speakers to exercise their speech rights responsibly. Speakers will be heard in the order in which they're signed up, and you'll have 2 minutes as speakers. And I believe we at least have one speaker tonight, and that is Mr. Brandon Torres. So, Mr. Torres, you're welcome to approach the microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I have some critical questions that I'll ask at the beginning, and then I'll ask those at the end. Can high school students look forward to returning? Can high school students and our community look forward to returning 5 days a week in person? Can we have an explicit goal to shoot for? What is the metric we can use as our goal? We need an attainable and a realistic goal that is publicized every day. Or is it just going to be 2 days a week, our hybrid schedule for the rest of the year? I believe in science. I'm a math teacher. I understand COVID is real, and I believe that we need to continue to abide by CDC's guidelines. I also understand that our classrooms are one of the safest places students can be. And I understand that we went remote to protect our grandparents and my 75-year-old father and 73-year-old mother. Now that they're getting vaccinated, what's our plan? All students need human interaction with their peers, with their teachers, with the lunch staff, with school bus drivers, security monitors, and counselors. CDC is saying now that from before COVID, 1 in 5 people suffered from mental depression and had mental health issues. Now they're saying it could be 1 out of 2. 1 out of 2. School is therapy for our students. Our high school students need to be in school 5 days a week to receive that therapy. Again, I'm gonna ask those essential questions again. I know I'm out of time. Can our high school students look forward to returning 5 days a week? We need an explicit goal to shoot for. Is it going to be the positivity rate of Weld County? The quarantine rate? Our students need to know. I asked students in the hallway the past couple weeks, do you want to return 5 days a week? I heard 2 answers. For the most part, I heard 2 answers. Yes, absolutely. Second answer that I even heard from my own son was, I just want this year to be over. We need a goal to shoot for. We do. We need an explicit goal to shoot for that needs to be publicized weekly, or tell the students that we're on hybrid schedule the rest of the year. Okay? And so those critical questions, I would like to have some further discussion, maybe some emails. I shot you guys some emails to read some articles with me, and so I'd appreciate some further dialogue with those questions. So thank you for listening to me, and I invited Miss Lee to my classroom to see the difference between hybrid and in-person learning, and I'll stay here. She's going to give me an award, so I'm going to stay and receive that award. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. And we look forward to seeing you again on our agenda just in a moment. Our next item of business is our work session report. And so, Ms. Crane, will you tell us what we've been doing in the work session?
I have 2 work session reports today. On January 15th, the Board of Education met with the Innovation 2030 Steering Committee to provide feedback on the focus areas, goals, and draft outcomes of the plan and discuss next steps in the creation of the district's strategic plan. And then earlier this evening, Board of Education President Michael Matthews began the work session with comments and updates from board members, and then proceeded to review the calendar of upcoming events and meeting dates. Dr. Pilch provided an update on negotiations, which concluded the work session.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Dr. Pilch, we're to your portion of the meeting, so I'll give this to you.
Thank you, President Matthews. I want to start first with some congratulations and congratulate Brody Subia, who is and was selected as the Colorado State High School Athletic Association Colorado Cheer Coach of the Year. So if those of you who know Brody, you know that he leads the cheer team at Greeley West High School, and has for several years. He was one of the first people I met when I got to the district, actually. And Brody is actually a former cheerleader from Greeley West High School. So congratulations to Brody. He's a great representative for District 6. And then I want to say congratulations to Sarah French, English and forensics teacher at Greeley Central High School. Ms. French received commendations from the National Speech and Debate Association for her excellence in developing district programs and resources. And she has just proven to be a tremendous leader among her colleagues there at Greeley Central and among the colleagues in the debate and forensics world. So congratulations to Sarah. As you said, President Matthews, all of our students are back, most of them in person. High school students still on a hybrid synchronous schedule. I appreciate Mr. Torres's comments and questions about that. We have our oldest kids who, with the data in Colorado, is now showing us that the older kids are transmitting it typically more to the adults, and whereas in our elementary schools across Colorado, adults are more likely to transmit to smaller children. So, I appreciate your questions, Mr. Torres, and I understand the frustration behind that. We did start athletic competitions this week, so we have folks competing in athletics this week, in those CHASA-approved athletics. We are not allowing any fans this week. We do hope to add fans next week. We want to make sure all of our protocols are in place and working this week before we begin to add more people into those gymnasiums. We will allow home fans only, up to 50 spectators, but only the home side. And then when we do play crosstown competition, so Greeley West and Greeley Central, we will allow 25 on each of the teams as spectators. We are going to be allowed to have some spirit and cheer squads at those competitions as well. It's trickier. They've got to stay 25 feet away from the spectators. I want to remind you that quarantines are updated regularly on the district website under the district news page, and then you go under COVID-19. It lists the schools and the numbers of students or staff who are quarantined at those sites. We did begin testing at some of our schools with the Binax Now test. We began that last week at 5 schools, 4 or 5, and then we added 4 or 5 more this week. And so we have a total of 9 schools that will be up and running tomorrow with testing in those schools. Just to be clear, that's to administer tests for students and staff who are symptomatic in that school. So we're not going to send other staff or students to those sites to be tested because of the burden that places on the health team there at that individual school. We do expect that if the tests are available and we're able to expand, they will expand the Binax Now testing to all of our district sites. And that's a rapid test. We will have, starting tomorrow, testing available here at the district office by appointment for staff or students who test negative at the building but are still exhibiting symptoms. They can come over here, go through the drive-through, and receive a nasal swab test to verify that negative Binax Now that they received at the building. I want to remind everybody of something that we revisited today around this 10-day quarantine and being able to return on the 8th day. The day you are exposed is day 0. So the next day is actually day 1 of the quarantine. So it's really 9 days from exposure that staff could return early with a negative test that was given on day 6 or day 7. And then the final thing I'll just add is that we are looking for up to into field trips for this spring, like we did in the fall, and allowing those on an individual basis as we consider each field trip. But we are looking at our protocols and looking to see if there are changes we can make in those protocols from the fall because the guidance has changed. But we hope to get some students out to some field trips as we go through the spring semester. And that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. Our next item of business is to approve the agenda for tonight.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Well, seeing none, Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. We also need to approve our consent agenda that I mentioned before tonight. So if someone would be so kind as to make a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves items as presented on the consent agenda and authorizes the officers to sign any and all contracts.
Second.
Thank you both. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. The next portion of our meeting is dedicated to some special recognitions and updates. And our first is the Arc of Weld County Bully Prevention Poster Contest. And Dr. Pilch, I'll give this to you.
Well, we are so fortunate among our many community partners who we work closely with. There's no question that Arc of Weld County is a very important partner to us, and we couldn't do the work we do with many of our students who are in special education without the support and help of Arc of Weld County. And I see Mr. Gribble moving to the podium to talk about the awards. So I'm pleased to introduce Director of Special Education, Tom Gribble.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. President Matthew, members of the board. Yeah, go ahead and pass the calendars out if you can. So you can start passing them out. It's my pleasure to be here tonight with our partners from the Arc of Will County to announce the winners of the 7th annual Bully Prevention Poster Contest. For the past 7 years, we have collaborated with the Arc of Will County and our neighbors to the west, the Windsor School District, during the month of October to create this activity to honor the National Bully Prevention Month. Before I turn this over to our partners who are on Zoom from the ARC to announce officially who the winners are, I'd like to recognize a couple folks. First off, the District 6 Communication Department, Casey Pearson, and his work with updating the flyer. He makes amazing marketing materials, and I'm proud to have it not just be what we use here, but also Windsor uses our same flyer. Lauren Maxey, the Administrative Assistant in the Office of Special Education. So while COVID may have slowed us down, it didn't stop this project, and we're really appreciative of her work in creating a Google form so all these participants could submit their posters digitally to the system, as well as managing, separating which poster goes to which district, and does just such a great job with all of that. I'd also like to recognize Tammy Brannon, one of our Assistant Directors of Special Education and former school psychologist in the system. Every year, she scans through all of the posters that are submitted and just kind of screens them for kind of red flags, any concerns, and we follow up with families or make referrals to the mental health professionals in the district if there are any concerns. Mail and copy from Windsor. Thank you for turning these calendars around so quickly and such a great price. All the teachers and students that participated this year, and then again, finally, the Arc of Will County for their continued partnership, leadership, and sponsorship. And so tonight from the Arc of Will County, we have the Advocacy Coordinator, Leticia Aguero, as well as the Board President, Sir Chris Housel. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you for the introduction, Tom. We appreciate it, and we greatly appreciate the powerful collaboration. As every year, like Tom said, for 7 years, we receive outstanding submissions from a variety of grade levels with a variety of themes that all have to do with bullying prevention. A little bit about the Arc of Wells County, if you're not familiar with us, is that we're an advocacy organization focused on protecting the rights of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The Arc of Wells County provides no-fee individual advocacy services, as well as community outreach programs such as events, educational trainings, and systems advocacy. With all that being said, and to get to the good stuff, I would like to introduce again Chris Housel, the Arc of Wells County Board President, with our winners.
All right, thank you for having us again, and thank you for the introduction. This year we received 49 submissions from the Greeley District 6, and I would like to present the winners. In first place, a $100 gift card to Centeramos, and that goes to Yama, can't say the name, sorry about this. You remember it? Can you help me here, please?
Yep, great job, Chris. Yemelis. Yeah, and it's a $25 gift card to Santeramos and a $100 check.
Check. Okay, I'm sorry, $25 gift card and a $100 check. And he will also receive, Yamamis will also receive a $100 donation for the PBIS program. Is that right? Okay. Okay. Second place is Kenny Flynn. Kenny Flynn will also win a $50. Okay. $50, and she will also get her school will also get a $50 donation from the PBIS program.
Thank you, Chris. And that one we had a minor typo. That winner is actually Lincoln. I think Kylie's a parent. So congratulations, Lincoln, on second place.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yep. And third place will go to Luba Burkett. And she also gets a $25 gift card, and also her school will get $25 from the PBIS program. So congratulations to everyone who participated, and do it again next year.
Thank you. I don't know, are we gonna do pictures?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mr. Matthews, you want to come down just super quick? We'll do it really quick.
I know, I like that one too.
Let's do it right.
I like this one too.
First picture. Come up here and stand with Mr. Matthews. Please go ahead and look at it.
Congratulations.
All right. You ready, buddy? Congratulations.
Good job.
All right.
Well, congratulations again, and thank you for joining us, and thank you to the ARC for doing this every year. This is a wonderful calendar that we look forward to getting every year, and so thank you so much to everyone. Our next agenda item is the Greeley Education Association Starfish Award, and so I think Miss Andy Lee, if you want to come to the podium, but Dr. Peltz, I will first. Nope, no need to give it to you. We'll just give it to Miss Andy Lee.
Hello, President Matthews, member of the board, Dr. Pelch, and members of the education, just general community. I have had the privilege of being in Mr. Torres's math class the last couple of days, once as an online student and once as an in-person synchronous learner. And let me just tell you, first of all, college algebra at my age is a scary, scary thing. But I have had an opportunity to be exposed to a fabulous educator in District 6. He is a teacher over at West High. I had the fun of having one of my ex-students in my group and just amazed at the quality of education that's happening. I wanted to present, as you know, the Starfish Award is about that poem about the little girl who is throwing starfish back into the sea, and the community is sort of mocking her and poo-pooing her and saying, well, why? There are tons of starfish. Why are you taking the time to do this? And she looks at all the adults and said, but this one makes a difference. And truly, Mr. Torres represents that little girl who is throwing the starfish back, because every student in his class is the one that makes the difference. So Mr. Torres started off the meeting asking some critical questions, and having been in his class, I can really understand why he's asking them. College algebra is hard. I mean, it's hard for me, and it's really hard for students who are being exposed to it for the first time. Being on a virtual platform, as good as he was, it was hard not having him face to face and being able to actually look at my work as I was doing it and authentically give me that feedback in that moment. And that wasn't to say that he wasn't doing his technology piece correctly. Synchronous learning is also hard. It is hard as a student online, waiting for the conversation with your peers who are in person. It's hard being in person, waiting for the conversation that is happening with your peers online. We got to use whiteboards in person. We got to do so much that we didn't have to manage the technology in person. And that does make a difference. However, we all know that we need to do it safely. So as I present this award to Mr. Torres, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for keeping us safe, and thank you for making us as in person as possible, because it does make a difference to each and every one of our students, as well as to each and every one of our educators. So we thank you for going above and beyond as much as you have in order to make this work for us as a community. We hope that we all get to be in person eventually, because we have decided, in person is always better than online. But that Wednesday afternoon for the synchronous concept that you were tasking us with is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that extra time. Because that time is allowing Mr. Torres to present that incredible educational opportunity that may not be happening otherwise. So I want to share this award, very minor plaque, but it has a great meaning behind it. So thank you, Mr. Torres, and thank you, everyone.
Don't go away just too fast, Mr. Torres. I imagine there's some board members that might want to congratulate you as well. So, Mr. Hafley?
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Hafley.
Mr. Torres and I go back an incredibly long ways. I was a high school basketball official when I first encountered Mr. Torres. And some people pride themselves on offense and some on defense. Mr. Torres was the person who prided themselves on defense. It was tenacious, it was passionate, it was hardworking, and he never felt that he ever fouled anybody in any of the Greeley West contests that I ever officiated. Back then, they never said anything, but I did get the Torres glare more than once in the course of my lifetime, and I'm delighted I didn't know what he was thinking. And then I had the privilege, and I mean the distinct privilege of teaching with Mr. Torres. And the same passion, tenacity, hard work, and love of students was as evident as it was when he was playing defense. And it doesn't matter if he was doing the graduation speech 2 years ago, or speaking to us this evening, or working with his students. Every day he gives his all, especially for the underserved. And all of us should look to you and thank you for your efforts on behalf of our students, because you are District 6.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hafley. Ms. Solis?
So I just want to thank you for all the stuff that you've done. Just on my time on the board, I've got to hear you speak at a graduation, which was just amazing. Read your story in the Greeley Tribune when they interviewed you, and just really got to hear your passion about this community and students. And I've also met some prior students of yours, and they still have these amazing stories of how you touched their lives, and something that they'll always remember about their interaction with you. So we are very fortunate to have you in the district. Thank you for being part of us. And you know, your story of Greeley West and really fighting for Greeley West to be rebuilt will always be a big part of why we were able to actually do that work. So thank you for your passion for your school, for your students, and for this district and our community.
Thank you, Ms. Solis.
Thank you, Ms. Solis.
Thank you very much.
We'll let you go, Mr. Torres, but I would echo those comments. We'll have a bond update tonight. It's incredible to see all the construction starting, and you were a big part of that. I don't know how many people were there that got to hear you speak, but I think we all remember that speech very well. The 2 windows and 1.5 bathrooms, and we got to change that. And so, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is a Success Foundation update. And Dr. Pelch, should I hand this to you, or we just we'll let Ms. Hill come on
I'm
up?
happy to say a few things, just a little bit. So we have with us tonight Mrs. Julie Hill and Ms. Delia Hafley, I think the new chair of the board for the Success Foundation. And I mentioned the partnership with Arc of Weld County before the earlier presentation, and there is no other partnership like this one with our Success Foundation. This is our District 6 Foundation, and the work and commitment that has been exhibited by this foundation, especially in the last 12 months, has been miraculous. I mean, everything we have seen as a void, Julie has been there to say, what can we do to help? What else do you need? How do we make that happen? Who can I reach out to for you? And over and over and over again, and way above and beyond what is typical of a Success Foundation. You exemplify a true partnership with District 6, and I appreciate you deeply for that. Thank you. We all do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I really, I'm going to give credit to our community and our donors. I will say we're very proud to be your foundation, but it really speaks, I think I am humbled this year to see that anytime we asked for help, our community gave it. And that speaks to the work that our educators do. It means they believe in our students. And so we're just happy that we can be that conduit to take those resources and distribute them accordingly. But yes, I would like to, again, Julie Hill, Executive Director of the Success Foundation. Ms. Delia Hafley has agreed to serve as our 2021 Board President. I do want to recognize we didn't, not just in an effort to keep folks down tonight, we did not invite every one of our board members, but leaving our board this year in 2020 was Steve LaForest. He served as our president the last couple of years. Danielle Prescott, that had been on the board for over 6 years, and Nancy Saleo. And I'm happy to report all of those folks will be sticking around to keep themselves involved in one way or another. And then we're really happy to bring on 2 new board members, and we're looking to add a couple of more. But Carolyn Renaud, CJ Renaud, who many of you know, will be joining our board, as well as Kelly Zielman. And Kelly has had a couple of kids in the district. 2 years ago, her daughter was one of our Better Scholars, so we're happy to have her, and she's currently with the Alumni Association at Ames Community College. So, yes, starting the year was pretty normal. Who knew that on March 10th, all of you were there, that would be kind of the last normal thing we got to do. I continue to think back how lucky we were to get that in, and really not knowing that the world was going to change shortly thereafter. But we did. We tried to. We are here to support you and our students, and so we did. There was not, at first it was like, what do you need? We don't know what we need. There's been so many changes, and so along the way, we're just happy that we were able to help. For us, it was our best year, and again, I think that speaks to our community and the fact that they're willing to support. But it's kind of nice we are able to continue some of our normal projects that will be very important, I think, especially as we get our kiddos back into schools. And then we were able to respond to some of the needs that occurred because of this COVID pandemic. So we are very proud that 3 smart labs did go in over the summer at Jackson, Meeker, and Mumford Elementary Schools. Our contribution to that for the 2021 school year is $201,818. So for our financial people in the room, I'm about to give them another check, and we should get close to the amount that we owe for this fiscal year on that. One of the most amazing opportunities we had this year was for our Nutrition Services Department and our Food for Success campaign. So many of you know we had the opportunity to partner with Kyle Clark and 9 News. And between that effort, then we had Adelson and Peterson come in and run a golf tournament for us. We had a lot of grants come in. We had donors from Denver, nationwide, all over the place. But between the money raised for Food for Success and Nutrition Services, it was over $311,000. So pretty amazing gifts there. We continue with our 21st Century Grant Program. I'm really interested to see what happens with those this year, and I want you all to know we are willing to be flexible because our teachers just may not be able to implement some of those things this year. But we did award over $35,000, and we're looking to take those again for this next year, but we realize we may need to shift as they're having to shift. We needed masks. We said, community, we needed masks. We need masks, and so we raised over $43,000 for masks and received an additional, our community started sewing masks. So we got almost 5,000 sewn masks donated to us, and we continue to distribute those in our schools. And then we had the opportunity to start our Delia and John W. Hafley Opportunity Fund. And we have some spendable funds there, raising over $66,000 for that fund this year. Right now, we will use that to support internet access for our families. And then we'll be putting out an application for students to be able to apply. The goal of that account is really to help reduce equity gaps in the district. We want students to be able to pursue any academic or extracurricular endeavor without having a financial barrier in their place. So looking forward to that. And then we're very proud that people are looking to us when they want to give gifts to District 6. So we received over $166,000 in directed gifts and grants. And that went for a variety of things, including internship programs, elementary music programs, as well as teacher closets, directed gifts to schools and programs. So our grand total for the year, I'm very proud again of our community, and to present this to you, Delia is going to present a check for, or your big check for $731,795.75 for the 2020 year. And that, I just looked back last year in comparison. At the same meeting, we presented a check for $307,483.05. So a big thank you to our community. and in a minute we'll get a photo up if we can. But we also, one more big accomplishment for us is we were able to start an endowment for the Success Foundation this year with a matching grant fund that we received. We did start that with $25,000, and that big milestone for us just for long-term sustainability of our organization. So proud of that. So normally at this meeting, I tell you, so what's next? When's our breakfast? When's our bike ride? We have no idea. That's not true. We are planning some things. Most of them will be virtual this year. We have a board meeting this Thursday that will be talking through a lot of that, but we will continue on, and we're going to do the best we can with what we have, and I think everybody is very patient and willing to deal with that and more supportive than ever. So we will have a breakfast, we will have a ride, we will do all of those things, but it's just going to be under a little different format. And then we are excited in the new year. Over the next 4 years, we will continue to partner with the district with our Smart Lab project, along with any other need that you may have, and we'll continue to match those funds that we find with the needs that you have. But Smart Labs will be implemented in all elementary, middle, and K-8 schools, and we've been working with Kent here on the bond projects and how we're going to get that done. We're excited for that project and think that will be great when the kiddos can be back in school full-time, and many of them already are. So I think that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions, and just thank you for letting us do what we do.
Mr. Talley.
I just want to say thank you. I know you gave a lot of credit where it's due to the community, and we are so grateful for the community that we live in, for the Greeley Evans District. And but I really want to thank you and your board. It takes a village, and you all went out there and you did the hard work to ask, and that's the hardest thing, is to ask. And so I know a lot of our students are extremely grateful for the opportunities that they are given because of your work. I have colleagues who live outside of Greeley, and when they find out I live in Greeley, they say, "Oh, you have the Success Foundation." And my boss is actually one of them that says, "You're so lucky you have the Success Foundation," where she took the morning off last year and came to the breakfast with me because she appreciates the work that you all do and is so grateful for everything. So again, thank you both so much for being here, and thank your board and the community and everyone involved for all the work that you do. And like I always say, I'm really grateful that my son is able to grow up in this district and will have all the opportunities that you're providing.
Thank you.
Ms. Pappas.
I too want to thank you, and I really appreciate you being here tonight just to give us the overview of all of the amazing things that have happened this year. It seems like so much has happened since March 10th, so I just really appreciate you giving us that information and sharing that, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Solis.
So it's so wonderful to see the way this has evolved. I mean, it started with community members that just had a passion about this district and about student learning. And, you know, as a former board member, just watching the people on the board and just how involved they were, dedicated, and just the excitement that they had for education and making sure that our kiddos had the best of everything. And then to see the work continue. I mean, I'm just so excited, and I look forward to seeing what comes next, because I mean, you guys just keep raising the bar, raising the bar, raising the bar. And so just so proud to have you a part of our district, and our kids and our community are very fortunate to have you. And this partnership with the district has just grown so much in the collaboration and the partnership, and, you know, just the mutual respect and just, you know, the mutual passion that we both have, and getting those ideas to go together and really bring stuff for our students and for our staff. So just thank you for your time commitment. It's another job that you don't get paid for, but you know, you guys show up and you do this work because kids matter, so thank you.
Mr. Hafley.
Thanks to both of you. It is incredible that the leadership of the Success Foundation has continually helped our community become better and lead your board of directors in a manner that causes them to bite in and have the same passions that you do. And you don't normally see the same things on many community boards. And yours is a working board where everybody's involved, and each of you should be really proud, because you're one of the allies that make our district a great place, and thanks to both of you for all you do.
Ms. Mueller.
I also want to thank you. I think the thing I really appreciate is how nimble you are to respond to the unique situation at any given time. And I think about the lunch money campaign. I forgot what it's called.
Food for Success. Yeah.
Yes, Food for Success. Such a nimble response to a need that was profound in our district at that time. And I was so impressed with how you went about getting the publicity out there for what you needed, and also just partnering with our community partners. And I just want to thank our community partners, the businesses that donate, the folks that create the golf tournament. I mean, it is heartwarming to see that in a year where we would expect donations to actually go down, they doubled, it seems like, here. So if I'm doing my math right, Delia, you'll have to tell me. Yeah, and so I'm just so impressed and thankful that it's not just about raising money. That's a big deal, but it's about raising money for the right purposes and the right things that our district needs, and I really appreciate all your work.
And I failed to mention, I think you all know this, but yeah, with the campaign, there was almost 150,000 of meal debt. That has been taken care of, and I'm meeting with Nutrition Services tomorrow to figure out how we make sure we don't have that in the future. So excited for that discussion. So if we can get a photo up, I would love it. Teresa, can we do that? Well, I'll take it if you would. Okay with yours? Okay. So we take our big check back. But thank you.
Thank you.
We say all the time that leadership makes a difference, and I know that our community is a wonderful community, and but it certainly takes leadership, like we've seen with the Success Foundation, their board, and their administration. So. We are very thankful and very blessed to have them as our nonprofit. So, next item of business is to cancel a board meeting. And so this is an action item that requires a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the, I'm off. Hold on just a minute, sorry. I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 cancels the Board of Education meeting scheduled for June 28th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you both. That was very quick. Is there any discussion on this agenda item? Well, not hearing any, I will just say this is pretty customary for us once the budget is done, and hopefully we'll have budget done this year if the legislature gets everything squared away. But I suppose there's always the chance we could need to meet later. So everybody, don't take that completely off your calendar. but yeah, hopefully we're good to cancel this meeting. So, Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Oh, sorry. Aye. Sorry.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item of business is a proclamation recognizing February 2021 as Black History Month, and this is also an action item.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the proclamation recognizing February 2021 as Black History Month as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Before we go any further, Mr. Talley, would you like to read this proclamation for us, please?
Of course. Proclamation recognizing February 2021 as Black History Month. Whereas Black History Month recognizes and celebrates the significant contributions of Americans tracing their ancestry to Africa. And whereas the observance of Black History Month has been proclaimed by every U.S. president since 1976, and whereas 44.1 million Americans and 614 students in the Greeley Evans School District 6 are of African descent, making up nearly 3% of the student body. And whereas Black History Month is celebrated every February as an homage to the achievements of Black Americans who have shaped American history, from Buffalo Soldiers to the first Black president and vice president of the United States of America. And whereas the evolving history of Black residents of the United States is the history of our country. And whereas District 6 is an institution of public education and it is imperative that our schools teach the history of Black Americans and their experience living in the United States. And whereas in the District 6 strategic plan, there is a strong commitment to cultural excellence and implicity, recognizing the accomplishments and contributions of Black Americans in the past, present, and future. And whereas the contributions of Americans who are of African descent in the fields of science, politics, medicine, education, art, music, writing, public service, and many other careers have greatly enhanced and advanced these fields, improving the lives of all Americans. And whereas the art, food, dance, music, and culture of Black Americans is embedded in the colorful weave in the fabric of the American culture. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Education of Greeley-Evans School District 6 recognizes and celebrates February 1st through February 28th, 2021 as Black History Month and encourages all employees, students, families, and community members to honor our citizens of African descent and recognize their immense contributions to our communities, our state, our nation, and our world. Given under my hand and the executive seal of Weld County District 6, this 25th day of January 2021. Mr. Michael Matthews, President.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Before we open this up for board members to comment and discuss, Dr. Pilch, would you like to say anything on this proclamation?
Thank you, President Matthews. I appreciate the board taking this under consideration, and I know that you all will approve it tonight. And thank you, Mr. Talley, for reading the proclamation. I think as we launch into this next month of instruction here in District 6, you will see a wide variety of activities taking place in our schools with an emphasis on recognizing the significant contributions of those folks who are of African descent and who really are people of color. I know I have been invited to read in a classroom in relation to just a multicultural reading day. So I think you'll see a lot of celebration this month, and I appreciate the board's support in considering this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Mr. Talley.
This is amazing, I guess, obviously. But I think I have to take a moment and just recognize, yes, we have Black History Month every year, the same month every year. But I think this month is this year is especially important that we honor our individuals of any color. But we right now are recovering from a lot in our country. And I think that it's important that we show our students and our community members and our parents that we see you, we hear you, and we recognize you, and you are important, regardless of your background, regardless of your beliefs, of your color, anything. But I know that we have a fairly large African population here in Greeley-Evans, and it is in Garden City. I can't ever leave them out. But it is super important that we give them the acknowledgement and the recognition that they deserve here in District 6. So I guess to any parent that may be watching or may be listening, and a parent if you have a student of color, we really appreciate you, and we really hope that here at Greeley-Evans District 6 that we are giving you what you need to be successful, and that we're giving your students what they need to be successful. And we know that there's work to be done here in District 6, but we have come so far, and we have so far that we are willing to go. So any advice, or if you need anything from any of us up here or in the schools, I know that everyone is willing to work for you and work with you to make sure that your experience here in Greeley-Evans is amazing. So in terms of this proclamation, I am just super, super amazed and honored, I guess I could say, to be a Black man in America, and a Black man in Greeley, and a Black man on this board. Brings me a lot of pride to know that I have people in this district that have my back, and that I have people in this community that have my back, and people in the state that have my back. So thank everyone for everything that you all do and all your recognition towards our marginalized populations and all the work that you do to be very inclusive and equal for everyone. I'm super proud and amazed. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Ms. Solis.
So I'm glad that we are recognizing this as a district. I look forward to the moment where it's not just a month. It's just part of our everyday life, that we recognize the contributions of people of color in our community all year round, learning about all of that history, especially in this community. We have a lot of people of color that have been here from the beginning doing the hard work, and a lot of times they go unrecognized. So I appreciate this effort, and I look forward to making it where it's just all the time that we recognize the people that have worked hard to bring our community together, our state, and our country, and all those valuable contributions that people have done before us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Solis. Mr. Hafley.
I couldn't agree more with the proclamation and what it stands for. And one of the things that I know that Ms. Solis and Mr. Talley believe in is that the idea of having critical thought in processing all the things that have occurred during the course of the last 400 years is incredibly important. But I think sometimes we forget about the leaders on this board, and I will reference Ms. Solis and Mr. Talley during the course of since June, that they have stepped to the front and they have been leaders at every turn, and people have looked to them for guidance as well as leadership, and each of them should be very proud of it. And I know that I'm proud to serve with both of you, as are the rest of the board. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hafley. You know, some of this history is hard to look at. It's hard. Some of this history is history we would rather forget, but it is history we need to appreciate and need to see, and let it inform how we go forward together. And so I'm delighted that we are recognizing this month as Black History Month. And Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item of business is another resolution, and this resolution is in support of suspending the 2020-2021 state testing. And this is an action item, so we'll need a motion.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the resolution in support of suspending the 2020-2021 state testing as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Dr. Pilch, is there anything you would like to say on this one before we hand this over to board members to discuss?
Thank you, President Matthews. I'll just say that we will be joining several other districts if we approve this proclamation tonight or resolution tonight. And then I would also recommend that you all consider a letter to our state legislators as well as to the State Board of Education to accompany this. This year has been a very difficult year for students and staff. And you heard Mr. Torres talk about this, the mental health, the behavioral health needs of students. This is not the year to take away from very precious instructional time and time building relationships with students and increase their stress and anxiety by putting a very high stakes state assessment on their plate. It's just not the year to do that. And I'll just self-disclose a little bit. I had my little great nephew over this weekend, helping him study for just a quiz, a science quiz. And the stress and anxiety that he exhibited with not understanding recessive and dominant genes and knowing this was going to be on the quiz. And then I think about the pressure that children will put on themselves around this state test. And I'm telling you, none of us are pressuring this little guy to be I'm like, it is a quiz. You are in 6th grade. It's one little quiz. I mean, none of us are pressuring him, and yet he's putting that pressure on himself. And I wonder about our students here in District 6 who, if this state test does come to fruition, the level of pressure they'll put on themselves. And then, in addition, I'm just going to say, we need those days for instruction. We've lost a lot of instructional time this year. and we need those days for instruction. So I thank you for considering this. Thank you for having this on your agenda tonight, and I'll let you take it from there and make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pilch. Ms. Mueller.
So I am in full support of this and us creating a letter together. I have to tell you that the amount of stress I'm seeing among students and the teachers I have that are friends and are talking about the difficulty in teaching via Zoom and how so many of their students are failing. And I know that we have done amazing things with technology, but it just isn't the same. It just isn't. No matter how well we try to teach in these formats, they're just not the same as that human interaction, that face-to-face interaction. And so I feel like we're setting our students up, as Dr. Pilch said, to be unduly stressed by the test. And it's also just not a fair assessment. It's just not an accurate picture of the kind of education they've gotten for the past year. And I know for some schools that are wanting to meet those assessment measures to get off their clocks, it may be disappointing, but I just don't feel like it's a good time for us to continually push our students and our teachers, and I think we need a break. I really do.
Thank you, Ms. Mueller. Ms. Pappas.
I too support this resolution, and I believe I speak for all of us that we would appreciate having a letter to accompany the proclamation. And then also, if you can let us know if there's anything else we can do, either contact our legislators or go to a Zoom meeting or in person, please let us know that. I think this is so important for us to do everything we can to speak out against state testing this year.
Thank you, Ms. Pappas. Mr. Talley.
I thought we usually hear the resolution and then give comments, so I was waiting, but I will just do it now. This is my opportunity, like every board meeting, to mention social emotional. We all know it's coming. So our students, like Mr. Torres mentioned, they were 1 in 5 this time a year ago were suffering or experiencing depression, and now we are at 1 in 2. That is horrible, and I think it is so unfair, and it is so mean, is just a way to put it, to tell our students, now go take this assessment. And especially our students who are already under pressure for, getting into the college they want and to getting the scholarships that they really want. And that there's students who really do take school seriously. And there's students like me who did not, but that's okay. We're going to make it. No, but I think that it's just mean, and it's hurtful to put this pressure on students and to put this unneeded stress. And all we're going to do is make their mental health drop and dip, and it's going to cause more harm than good. So I really think that this is needed, and I really hope that the state hears and listens and truly considers.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Ms. Solis.
We don't have the best funding record when it comes to taking care of our students here in the state of Colorado. We've been very fortunate here locally that we have the support of local donors, local community members, businesses, and so we have been fortunate in that way. We as a state have the opportunity to really show that we care about our kids in a way that isn't a dollar amount, but in a way of saying we care about the whole child, the whole student, and that we recognize what they have gone through. And to put this undue additional pressure on them when they have gone through so much, I agree with Mr. Talley, is just cruel. And we have, as a state, need to step up and do something different. And so I'm hoping that other boards around the state will also be sending letters to the state legislator and also this state ed, and just making sure that we're taking care of our kids. Now is the time to really step up.
Thank you, Ms. Solis. Ms. Mash.
Thank you for allowing me to speak via Zoom. Since we didn't read the resolution yet, I thought I would just mention a couple of pieces of it that I do really like and that resonate with me, and I think would with our community as well. And in our resolution, we are stating that we absolutely owe it to our community to provide accountability to the excellent education that we're providing our students. And then in the same token saying that this test is not going to help in that way because it is designed for in-person learning, and our students have been largely remote learning. So I just wanted to point that out. We are assessing our students' growth and their movement with other types of methods in the classroom and online. But again, I echo what my colleagues have said, that this is not going to be helpful. And in an article I read by Lori, let me see, her name, Lori Shepard, she's a professor at CSC or CU Boulder. She just said that testing this year is counterproductive because it potentially demoralizes students and teachers without addressing the grave problems exacerbated by the pandemic. So just again, this is not the best method to be administering this year. And I think there's been talk over a number of years of revamping our assessment and accountability system. And if we're not going to do testing for 2 years, this is like the perfect time to just relook at the whole system.
Thank you, Ms. Mash. Mr. Hafley.
I don't want to reiterate everything that's been said so well before me, but I think we also forget one of the components in this social emotional piece is our educators. We talk about removing things from plates, and if the state mandates one more thing on top of this, those that are currently stressed are going to become more stressed. And I think that we're doing a disservice not only to our students but our educators as well as all of our administrators as well. And I think that somebody who at CDE needs to understand what really occurs at the local level as opposed to sitting in their ivory tower and not having an understanding of what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Hafley. Before we will read this, and thank you for reminding me.
Sorry, that was my job. We're just so passionate,
But before we read this, I would just say, one of our first core values is that our students come first. And I say this all the time, but it is so clarifying for our work to have that core value. We just always go back and ask, what is the best thing for our students? And I wish our state legislature had that core value, and perhaps they will. But I would ask our community, if you're watching this, if you're catching this, this is Monday night, but if you're catching this on a Tuesday or Wednesday, if you're just catching up, contact your state legislature, your legislator, your senator, your state senator. Let them know this is not the best thing for the social and emotional health of our students. It is not the best thing for the physical health of our students, as we will have to bring kids that we have very intentionally had on a hybrid schedule so that we don't have too many kids in a classroom. For this test, we will have to bring them in all at once. This is not the best thing for students. It's not the best thing for teachers. And we would appreciate our community's help in letting their state legislators know this. So thank you. Ms. Solis, will you read this resolution for us?
Yes. Resolution of the Board of Education of Weld County School District 6. Resolution in support of suspending 2020-2021 state testing. Whereas the Board of Education, the Board of Greeley Evans School District, District 6, believes that schools should be held accountable to the public for providing rigorous and effective academic programming with the exception or expectation that every student should receive an excellent education and graduate ready to succeed. And whereas the board is dedicated to protecting the health and safety of all students, staff, family members, and visitors to District 6 schools, and to that end is adhering to the recommendations and guidelines set forth by the Center for Disease Control, the Colorado Governor's Office, Weld County Department of Public Health and Environment, and the Colorado Department of Education, CDE, related to controlling the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas the pandemic has created difficult and unforeseeable obstacles to student learning, including access to teachers, materials, and support services provided by District 6, which has resulted in substantial disruption disruptions to school and the academic success of students. And whereas the state has properly made the health and safety of all students and staff a priority during the pandemic. And whereas the need to make health and safety a top priority has consequently created unpredictable learning environments as schools, classes, and cohorts must frequently and inconsistently alternate between remote and in-person classroom settings, which has made instruction and learning immensely more difficult in both the 2019-2020 and 2021 school years. And whereas the mental health of students and staff has been seriously and negatively impacted by stress and concerns related to pandemic and would be unnecessarily exacerbated by mandatory high-stake state testing this spring, particularly in light of the academic difficulties teachers and students are already facing due to the pandemic. A state-required assessment should not trump the quality instruction, relationships, and social-emotional care and sensitivity that are required at this time. And whereas CDE correctly suspended state-level testing for the 2019-2020 school year due to the difficulties school districts, school staff, and students faced, including the cessation of in-person learning due to the pandemic, and whereas the 2021 school closures for in-person learning have continued for the majority of the 2021 school year, and school districts across Colorado, and the services they provide have been severely disrupted due to the pandemic during the 2021 school year, and whereas the board believes that conducting high-stakes standardized testing this spring would be detrimental to students and will fail to fairly assess student achievement and growth given the pandemic's disruption to education and would result in a loss of instructional time, just as students are finally able to return to in-person learning throughout Colorado at a critical moment in students' education. And whereas the board believes requiring students to complete and educators to administer tests that were not developed for a remote learning environment serves no real useful purpose. And whereas District 6 has worked diligently to integrate rigorous internal assessments for all students to monitor achievement and adjust instruction to ensure students continue to receive a quality education in this unpredictable learning environment. And whereas District 6 believes that just as CDE's decision to suspend testing for the 2019-2020 school year was in the best interest of students, teachers, schools, and school districts, suspension of the state testing for the 2021 school year is the best interest of students, teachers, schools, and school districts. Now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby recommends that the CDE suspend the state testing for the 2021 school year, adopted and approved this 25th day of January 2021. Will County School District 6 by Michael Matthews, President, Board of Education.
Thank you, Ms. Solis. That was a lot of whereas, but a lot of good reasons
Very important whereas.
why we should suspend this testing. Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote on this resolution?
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash? Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item of business is the second read and adoption of policy GBI, criminal history record information. This is an action item.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 adopts policy GBI, criminal history record of information as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. Before we open this up for discussion from board members, Dr. Pilch, is there anything you would like to say on this second read and adoption of this policy?
Thank you, President Matthews. Just as a reminder, this is a new policy recommended by the Colorado School Boards Association that will help us to better align with the federal criminal justice information security requirements. So these requirements were set forth as a minimum for maintaining the security within our criminal justice information systems. Because we do fingerprint-based and background checks and record keeping, we must ensure proper storing and accessing and disposing of this information in accordance with the criteria set forth by the Criminal Justice Information security requirements. So this policy does that for us. Staff are working to develop training and to make sure we have all pieces in place once this policy is approved.
Thank you, Dr. Filch. Well, this is a second read, so we've had plenty of time to look over this, but are there any questions or comments from board members? Not seeing any. Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. Our next item of business is one we've been looking forward to, and that is our bond update. And I see Mr. Henson coming to the podium. But Dr. Pilch, is there anything you want to say first?
Thank you, President Matthews. I will just say that Mr. Henson is going to keep this high level. There is a lot of information in the work that is going on with our bond issue. And so in the coming weeks and months, we will be providing you with additional video that gives you a virtual look inside some of these campuses. We will also work to get you out on some of these construction sites, and at least to the big one, which is Greeley West, so that you can actually see firsthand the work that's taking place. But lots of exciting work. We gave an update to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee this past Thursday night. They were very complimentary and supportive of the work that is going on. Kent also provided an update to our Business Advisory Council last week. So lots of community support, and really, I mean, people are pretty impressed. And so with that, I'm going to see if Mr. Henson can impress you all too.
Good.
No pressure.
No pressure. Well, great. I'm glad I have this last 2-hour slot because I have a lot to share.
On your last night of employment.
Yeah, okay. So a lot's happened, and a lot is actually some work has been completed since the last time I did a presentation. So the purpose of this presentation is just to give you a glimpse of actually what's going on in the bond world. And I want to start with this from our shared vision that you can look at and pick out some of those keys. Again, I always show that with our contractors and our architects and our DAG teams when we start because of the work that our community group did almost 2 years ago that really set the path for the bond. So I don't ever want to forget our focus. And so first I'll start with Greeley West High School. And again, our completion date for this is the fall of 2022. And we are right on schedule for completion. And this project is going very well. And in terms of design, we are just working on finishes, working with our DAG team. We got the theater finished a couple weeks ago, and we're just kind of finalizing just pallets and things like that. In regard to construction, we started going vertical probably right around Christmas, and every day if I took a picture, it'd be obsolete by the next day. So there's a lot of work out of there. On the left, there you see the elevator shaft that will be near the gym being completed. The pink tubes in the floor are glycol-filled tubes for in-floor radiant heat, which will be the way we're going to heat most of this building. And on the right, you see a lot more of these now, but these are 20,000-pound concrete slabs that are prefabricated and will make up the walls around the outside of the CTE, the Aux gym, and the gym. And so that's very exciting work that's going on and changing every day. This is a picture of the theater, which really they started on an awful long time ago, and you used to stand on the ground and look up, and now you can stand at ground level and look down. In those 3 arrows there, that's the orchestra pit, and those 3 arrows just show where the stage will stop. It'll have 3 stopping points, one at the bottom for storage, tenor storage in the back, and the one in the middle will be the performance level, and that's how students will enter the stage at performance level, and then the top arrow will be actually the performance if it's up for a play. So that's kind of a big thing that's happening in the middle of the building, and it's kind of cool to see how that progresses. And then new classrooms, and so this is the CTE building, I believe right there. the old building that we're going to eventually tear down. And that front wall there to your right is the outside of the existing classroom. And so that's how close we're building there. All those white pipes are plumbing, so we will have more than 1.5 bathrooms guaranteed in this new site. So a lot of that deep plumbing, especially on the south side, and utilities has gone in. They now have to put it in on the north side of the building, and they'll start working toward the middle, which is the auditorium. So this is right on track. There's any day right now you go out there, there's 120 to 150 people on site, hauling concrete, steel. It's an amazing thing. So we'll have to get you out there. And so this is kind of what's happening behind the scenes, is working on colors and palettes. And I'd like to remind you that the carpet on the left, we are purchasing all of our carpet for all of our projects nationally. We did that through a bid process, so we avoid markups for that. So all of our architects are working through the same carpet lines, and then we adapt colors based on building. And the same with all floor finishings and paint. Krista McCullough STEM Academy is also moving. Our completion date for that is November of 21. And as I think I mentioned before, we had a lot of time really working on that site to make sure in the design process that we're getting cars out of neighborhoods and getting them on site, and working on that with the city and with our design team. And so that has come a long way recently. And again, you'll see some work. This elevator shaft on the left there is now complete. That's 2 stories high. That will be in the new wing. And then the foundations there you see on the right for all of the new additions, those should be done here in the next week or two, which means now you can see the trenches there where they're going to be putting utilities. And once they get that done, then they'll be putting in the slab, and then we just keep going up. So you'll see a lot of different kinds of activity there. This is a smaller addition, so if you go there during the day, there's probably about 50 to 60 people on site. And then on the other corner of the building, this is the southwest corner, they should be starting that this week, putting in the footings there. There will be 2 kindergarten classrooms on that corner, which will allow us to keep all 4 of our kindergarten classrooms together. So that's a small addition going off that parking lot. And then they're working on a lot of their finishes and colors. You see some similarities there, and these are just architect renderings on how they get inspired and how they work with our DAG teams. The same design team is working with Chapello, if you remember, the same architects, so they'll move from one job to the other. And since we've started construction, a lot of the design at McAuliffe is done, so they're shifting to Chapello, where we've already had DAG meetings with the principal and all the user groups there, and then the construction team will follow. And this has a completion date of fall of 2022, and we're working with the city of Evans on that, and things are going along there very well, and we're on target for that job. One of the big things took us a long time with this is working with the fire department on putting in a fire lane that by code we have to build this to the right, which is current parking lot, and then we have to go all the way around the building. So to meet fire code, even though we're building brick, in terms of access, if there is a fire, we have to put this in, which has been a kind of a big topic of discussion, but that's what we're going to have to do. I should show you that the, and you can't see my pointer, but the left part you can see new addition. So that will mostly be the performing arts addition, so we can get like dance class out of a portable and actually into a dance class. This is an arts magnet school. And so here are some renderings of some of our performing arts spaces. And so again, with our design with the middle school, we wanted a nice flex space for performances. And again, because they have digital and performance and 2D art in here, you can see in this space we could have those seats folded back and they could have an art show. showing off pottery or something, or we can pull these seats out and have a performance, a music performance. This wall on the right will drop down, and for sound will allow us to do performances on the inside. This is what this looks like. Theater seats pulled out. This is very common now in schools because once you put in theater seating, you're stuck. That's what you're doing. And so this will give them a lot of flexibility in this space to do whatever it is that they need to do. And then this is looking down on the stage, and we have made sure we had quite a bit of discussion on what is behind the stage in terms of lights, curtains, and to make sure that this is a performing an arts magnet school. Their performances will be at a higher level than our other schools, and so we've taken that into consideration. And they'll have some very nice light and audio and curtain option types equipment to work on with this stage. This is an example of the dance studio. So again, right now they go out to a trailer, walk outside, come into dance, wipe off their feet and get after it. And now they're going to be able to be inside, stay inside, walk into this and have a nice wood floor with mirrors and the things that they need for a dance class. And so the architects have worked very closely with our performing arts teachers on all these spaces in design. And then this is an example of a music room. There's a choir room, a band room, and a orchestra room in addition to a theater room. And so they would have some subtle differences, and again, they worked with the teachers on the design of that. So that's coming along very well. Toynton Academy of Pre-Engineering, completion date, you see a similar date there, fall of 2022. This is really, we're kind of getting just close to the end of the design phase, and we're getting into the construction phase. And I was driving out there in my Jeep the other day, and hopefully we're going to be pushing dirt with bulldozers here in the next week or two. So that'll be quite exciting. We have met with kind of a district level DAG team for now, and we have programming meetings going on right now talking about pre-engineering. And in fact, there's a meeting tomorrow morning with the architects and the curriculum people to make sure we're on the common ground with how we're putting together spaces. And so, as you know, the site layout here is the land swap is complete, IGA with the city of Greeley. And so how this will look in kind of a phased approach is where you see school site, that's where we're going to start to build. And we'll keep the golf course open, which will be in the yellow. And then the golf course will begin on our property in the green. That's the swap, so the green for the yellow. And so by allowing the golf course to build their holes on the green while we keep the yellow open, then they will be able to not lose time on the golf course. And so the very last thing we're going to put on this site is the front parking lot. So right before school goes out, that'll be available to us, and we'll be putting on that front parking lot. But this is the design standard that we've been really gearing for since the beginning. And the advantage again of this is we will have 4 access points onto this property for our facilities, which in 71st Street access, which will be a benefit to us. And so here is the, again, with the pre-engineering concept, just some of the colors that come, you see a little bit of a tile in there that has a topographic map feeling. There's a lot of effort put in place by this design team to think about what is pre-engineering, what are science and energy concepts that are kind of related, and how does that do to fluid and movement and motion. And so they have quite a few themes in this building. Also, I'll say that this building is kind of developed into a ribbon pattern, and the purpose of that is we can separate learning communities or grade levels at times, but we can also move kids through each other and above each other seamlessly from one place to another, where we have studios for design and others. So it's a very nice concept for a building. These are just some diagrams kind of the inside common spaces. A lot of science and math graphics There'll be a lot of whiteboards around. You know, if you picture what do engineers do, you know, I equals P over R or whatever. You know, and so spaces for kids to group and write and to take notes and to do things like that. So hopefully the design of this building is really to stimulate in that engineering area. And here's a picture of the gym. The Aux gym side, there's a full competition gym on the other side. So even though these look kind of artistic, I can assure you there are blueprints behind all of these that support this work, and we're well into that stage of blueprints and schematics. So earthwork should begin here very quickly. The road work you'll see going in that center road in March through April. And then foundation work will begin in April and May. And that's when we've talked about perhaps having a groundbreaking ceremony somewhere in that time frame. And then staffing being hired, trying to get the principal hired before the building opens, and then pulling in the rest of the staff a little bit later on. Madison Elementary. Completion date a year later, fall of 2023. That means we have to start right now. We actually, on Wednesday of this week, have a site walk with any architectural firm that will be interested in bidding on this. They have to do a mandatory site walk with us, see the site. We can talk about it, answer questions. We've done that at every job. It's very beneficial. So this will be a full replacement in on-site construction, like a lot of our buildings are right now. And so we will have our architects in place by March 1 for this job, and then soon after that we'll be pulling and soliciting for a general contractor. And so there was a committee that worked this fall that recommended this, and I think we talked about this, to bring this to a pre-K-8 from a K-5 with gearing about 750 students. And they will have also a STEAM focus, and then also be an AVID school, which is all good for the architects to know. It's nice that we have that kind of timing. And then phase 1 improvements. If you remember, this is the work that we did last summer. I don't know if you've had a chance to be in these buildings. These are the new front entries. Just that aluminum glass kind of gives a cheery look to the front. It's secure on the back side. And if you haven't been there, perhaps sometime I can give you a tour of those. And so carpet, paint, and all that work is going on behind those doors. And we just have one more thing to do on our punch list, and these are done, and these are in the books. So that is our phase 1. Those 2 schools are done. Some additional bond projects that have occurred this summer for Greeley Central. We replaced those boilers. And so there's Philip Valadez, our mechanical department leader with the old boilers. That was about a year ago on the left, and then the new ones on the right. And 3 nice small ones, very energy efficient. They don't all have to work at the same time. We should be saving quite a bit of energy there. And it's a little cheerier, less scary of a place. If you go down in the dungeon now, it's kind of lost its luster. But that's a big improvement for Greeley Central. Phase 2 improvements we've also begun on, and these will be the front entries, the carpet and the paint and the door hardware, and the career and college readiness for our next group of schools. And so we've already had meetings with the principals and those teams. We have the same architect. We're pulling on Bryan Construction from Fort Collins for these jobs. These will begin April-ish and end August-ish. And the next 4 schools I think I have on here are Dos Rios, Hyman, Bella, Romero, and Winograd. So those will be our 4 phase 2 schools. We have made the decision at Dos Rios to do extra work and renovate their HVAC system since we have architects and engineers on site. So those classroom ventilators that are loud and noisy, they have one on the floor and one in the ceiling for air. We're ripping all that out and putting in one smaller vertical unit that'll be much more efficient, bring in a little better air, and will be a lot quieter. So that'll have a big impact on those classrooms. And then Northridge, Greeley Central, those are big projects at Northridge this summer. That roof is the best grant application for us. And so we looked at the boilers there, so we have things that we need to do as we go with those big schools. Okay, that is it for bond as of January. Are there any questions?
Bet we'll have a few, Mr. Talley.
Like I said, that was it for Vaughn. That's a lot of buildings and a lot of stuff. It's crazy. We started taping our basement in our house to paint the same time that you guys broke ground at Greeley West, and we haven't even finished taping our basement. So I'm really hoping that we finish before Greeley West goes up, or I'm going to be super sad. But I couldn't imagine how busy you are with all this. The meetings you talked about this week, I'm trying to think about what I'm going to eat for lunch tomorrow, and I couldn't imagine what your brain is doing throughout the day, all week long. So we're very appreciative of you and all your work that you do.
Thank you.
I just have to put a shameless plug. My son talks about McAuliffe is getting a new playground, he says. So I sure hope there's a new playground coming, because I don't know if we're going to work through that together. But no, I did have a question around the boilers. You mentioned at Northridge. You said you're going to look at new boilers, or looking
Well, we did
at
at Greeley
boilers.
Central, yes.
Okay, so Northridge there's no.
Northridge, I believe, is getting a chiller. I have to look at my notes.
Okay, so how often what's the lifespan? Because those ones you showed in the picture look like they were from 1862.
No, not quite. I think it was 1958.
Oh, wow.
is
What is
all.
it?
So a lot of our boilers, and when we talked about deferred maintenance, when we went through the facility studies, as with our roofs, a lot of things have a life expectancy of 20 years that we run for 30 to 35. So that's good work on our people for keeping them going, but pretty soon they run out and have to be replaced. So we're getting on those and replacing them as part of these projects as we go.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll just end with saying thank you for the aesthetics inside of the buildings. They look very fun and welcoming, and I'm excited to see these buildings, and I'm sure hope that I'm on the board when these buildings go up. If not, I might just have to sneak into the buildings legally, of course, to take a peek at them. So thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Solis.
So thank you to Dr. Pilch and UCAMP for really pushing this facility master plan and really taking account of what we have neglected and what we need to move forward. Thank you to our community, obviously, for passing this bond and really participating in making sure that our kiddos enter schools that just make them feel so welcomed and eager to learn. I know that we have a lot of construction going on here, and I know that there's some other places around us doing construction. How are we doing with, workers and materials?
We're doing pretty well. So the reason that we started Greeley West as a design build is because we got the contractor on early, they got their subs on early, and they're keeping them through that project. The reason we did McAuliffe and Chapello together is we have that general contractor, they're getting all their subs lined up basically for 3 years of work. And so we're getting our price here, and then we're keeping them occupied through those 3 years over 2 projects. So as we bring on, that's why we're quick to go and going out to Madison, that we try to go at a rate where we can get subcontractors. In terms of supply, right now steel is a problem because Amazon had a great year. They're building 300 warehouses in the country, and they're, I don't want to say the word extorting in a public meeting, but they're
Hoarding?
Hoarding steel. And so that has affected our jobs, but our contractors have been on that. So at Greeley West, they actually changed how they're going to phase build that building. So once they start with steel, they don't have to stop because they're worried if they stop, there'll be a delay. So they're on that. They know that. They talk about that on all of our jobs. And so we've got the right people on each of these jobs because each of these jobs are different.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mash.
I just wanted to say in the words on time and within budget. That's just amazing, because kind of like Mr. Talley, no project I've ever done has been on time or in budget at my own house. I was wondering if the build for Madison is be similar to Greeley West, in that students can continue using the current building and the new building will sort of be built around it.
Yes, at Madison, we plan to build on site and then tear down Madison when we're done, so very similar to Greeley West.
Ms. Pappas.
I want to thank you as well for all your work, and as Rhonda said, also thank you to the community for passing the bond. But I also want to just remember and thank our District 6 staff for all the work that was put into walking and knocking and begging people to really pass this bond. As you can see, the needs were great, and this is so exciting. So I want to just remind people that there was a lot of work put into this, and thank you to everybody that participated.
Thank you, Ms. Pappas. And I mean that sincerely. Thank you for
Yes.
leading a lot of that bond effort and leading a lot of that walking. And so we are greatly appreciative of your work as well. Mr. Henson, you didn't go 2 hours, but I think that's probably one of the few presentations we could sit through for 2 hours. This is so exciting when I look at the pictures of Chapel O's performing arts space, and I think of the hours going into days that I've spent on the hard folding chairs in the Chapel O gym. I mean, it's hard to not cry when I see this, how beautiful this is, and yeah, we're so appreciative of your work and our community and all that it took to pass this, and that, again, everything is on time, everything is under budget, and we just can't thank you guys enough. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henson.
Our next item is not quite as exciting, but equally important. And that's our budget year revisions for 2021. And so this, let me see, this is an action item,
Yes.
so we'll need a motion to proceed.
I move that the Board of Education of Greeley Evans School District 6 approves the revised budget, including a total appropriation of $444,268,795 to transfer of funds from the general fund and the use of beginning fund balance where required, as presented in the revised budget document.
Second.
Thank you both. Dr. Pilch, I'll give this to you to start us off.
Thank you. And speaking of on time and on budget, right? This has been a particularly complex year for school finance and for school funding. Really, it started a year ago when we faced those significant budget cuts to go into this school year. And then the managing of our CARES Relief Fund dollars, our ESSER dollars that have come as a result of this pandemic, and then a decline in student enrollment, and families choosing to not send their kinders to school this year to start. And with that, we are excited and pleased, and of course not surprised, that our Chief Financial Officer, Megan Sponsor, will present to you tonight a revised budget that does balance the budget and does keep us, within our budget. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Sponsor.
Thank you. So, no, my presentation is not as exciting as Kent's was, but we do have to pay for all of that work to be done. So your action tonight will allow us to continue that work. So as Dr. Pilch said, every January we bring to you a revised budget, and really this is our opportunity to kind of true up our revenues and expenses based on half of the year being over. So I was thinking back this morning and I thought, what was it like in June when we passed this budget? And just the uncertainty that I think we all felt. It just was such a crazy time. And not that things are less crazy, but I think we just feel a little bit more comfortable with the craziness that has now become our daily life. But at that time, we had no idea what our budget would really look like. We didn't know how much money the state would have. We didn't know what our local property taxes might look like. So I will say that I always do, and I did especially this year, I budgeted pretty conservatively. And so I think that has paid off for us pretty well. Even though we did have a decline in our student enrollment, we didn't really see our actual revenues drop significantly. And that's because I had budgeted some property taxes to be lower than what we're actually seeing come in. So that's a good thing. The same thing with some of our specific ownership taxes. I had budgeted lower than what we're actually seeing come in. So overall, even though we had a drop of about 617 students in our enrollment, our revenue picture looks pretty good. On the expense side, as Dr. Pilch said, we had all of those coronavirus relief dollars flow into the district. And through the course of the past 6 months, the rules around how we could spend that money changed often. So what we thought we would be able to spend those dollars on in June shifted, and so this revised budget reflects those shifts in how we spent those dollars. Just one example is in June, we thought that we could use those monies to pay for some of our custodial salaries, and then later on we found out that that was not an allowable expense, and so we ended up shifting that in to pay some of our teachers. So in the bottom line, everything washed out the way it needed to, but you'll see some pretty big shifts between some of those categories in the general fund. On some of the other funds, just real quick highlights. In the risk management fund, you'll see an increase in appropriation of about $1 million. That's because we've had some damage to some of our properties. That windstorm that we had just a few weeks ago, or last week, did some damage to some of our roofs. So we have some damage to repair, so we will have some insurance claims to file on some various property damage. Then also in the nutrition fund, again, not a change to the bottom line, but just a change in the revenue that's coming in. Typically, we do get payments from families and students to pay for those meals, but this year with the waiver from the USDA, the federal government is picking up that tab. So it's just shifting where that money is coming from, no longer coming from our families, but coming from the federal government. So those are just some of the big picture highlights in the revised budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Sponsler. Are there any questions from board members? Ms. Solis.
I don't have any questions, Megan, but just thank you for always being so conservative with our money and taking care of it. I know that's one of the biggest things when it came to passing the MLO and the bond is making sure that we're responsible with our money, and you just do such an amazing job at making sure that we are accountable and transparent. So just thank you for all your effort and your staff for making sure that we, keep that promise to our community and our voters.
Thank you.
Mr. Talley.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Around Platte Valley, so we pay for some stuff there. Are we responsible for like building maintenance or building upkeep, any of that stuff?
No, we are not responsible for the facility itself, but we do provide the educational services at that facility. And so the expenses that we incur are mostly staff, and then some small expenditures for technology, curriculum, those kinds of things. But mostly staff that we have out there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Thank you.
I would just echo the gratitude then, Ms. Sponsler. I don't know if our public can see this, but if you look at, we had about a $20 million drop in revenue from the state funding this year, and the reason that we're able to continue services and to continue to do all the great things that we do is because Ms. Sponsler and her team are so creative in being able to keep us open and keep us running even in tough times, and so we appreciate it greatly. We do need to pass this though, and so Ms. Crane, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Hafley?
Aye.
Mrs. Mash?
Aye.
Mr. Matthews?
Aye.
Mrs. Mueller?
Aye.
Ms. Pappas?
Aye.
Mrs. Solis?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
President Matthews, if I may, I think it's important to point out that as terrible as the pandemic has been and COVID has been, had we not had the COVID relief funds that flowed to District 6, we would have been looking at a very different budget revision tonight. I just, we had this terrible thing with this pandemic, and really the funding that came as a result of that, I don't mean to over dramatize, it was really a lifesaver for us. And so that's kind of the bittersweet of this, and I see Megan nodding her head, but I just felt like I needed to say that.
And you mean the federal funds?
Yeah, I do mean the federal funds, yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, did we have a vote? Did we all say aye? Or-
You all passed it, then I interrupted you.
I forgot where we were. I think that is all that we have.
Sorry.
And so thank you for joining us. We appreciate you sticking with us till the very end. And this meeting is adjourned.